The Wooden Cabin, Chapter 3. The cabin felt both full and empty at once. The warmth of his presence stayed long after the sound of his truck faded. That night, as she laid in bed, Clara realized something had changed inside her. The walls she had built around her heart weren't as strong as before. The silence that used to comfort her now felt different, softer, warmer. Ethan had brought life back into that quiet little world. And though she didn't know where it would lead, she wasn't afraid anymore. Outside, the snow fell gently, and for the first time in years, Clara didn't feel alone. She had opened her door to a stranger, but what she had really opened was her heart to warmth, to kindness, to the simple possibility of something beautiful beginning again. Winter was slowly fading from Vermont, leaving traces of snow melting into small streams along the hills. The air carried a touch of spring, gentle, fresh, and full of new beginnings. For Clara, it had been almost 3 weeks since she last saw Ethan. Life had settled into a rhythm again, but not the same kind as before. Every morning she found herself glancing out the window, wondering if his old truck might appear at the end of her driveway. It hadn't yet, but hope had quietly taken root in her heart. She tried to stay busy, painting, gardening, repairing things around the cabin. I taught her enough to handle small tasks herself, but no matter what she did, his memory lingered, his laughter, his kindness, the way he listened when she spoke. He had made her feel seen again. It wasn't about romance or promises. It was about connection. Something real. Something missing from her life for too long. Then one mild afternoon, Clara was out near the porch cleaning flower pots when she heard a familiar sound. The deep hum of a truck engine. She turned, and there he was. Ethan stepped out of his truck, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers that looked freshly picked. His smile was the same, warm, honest, easy. I figured I'd make sure you didn't forget me, he said, walking toward her. Clara laughed, unable to hide the joy in her face. Forget you? You're hard to forget, Ethan Brooks. He handed her the flowers. Then my plan worked. They went inside, and soon the smell of coffee filled the cabin again. The way he fit into her home felt natural, as if he had always belonged there. They talked about simple things, his work, the lake nearby, and how the town looked different now that the snow was gone. But beneath her words was a quiet understanding that something between them was growing, something gentle yet powerful. Over the next few weeks, Ethan became a part of her days. Sometimes he stopped by to help fix the roof or repair a broken chair. Other times, he would just come to share a meal or talk about life. They spent hours walking the trails behind the cabin where the world felt untouched and calm. Clara found herself opening up about her past, her failed relationship, her decision to leave the city, and the loneliness that had followed. Ethan never interrupted, never tried to fix her pain. He simply listened. "You did what you had to do," he said. One evening, as they sat by the lake, "Sometimes walking away isn't giving up. It's choosing yourself again." His words stayed with her. They were simple, but they healed something deep inside. For the first time in years, Clara felt like she was no longer carrying her story alone. One afternoon, he showed up with a box of tools in his hand. "You mentioned that your fence is loose," he said. "Thought I'd help." Clara smiled. "You really can't stay still, can you?" He chuckled. "I'm better when I'm building something. Makes me feel useful." As they worked side by side, she watched him, the way he moved with focus, his hands sure and steady, his voice calm as he explained what he was doing. It all drew her in. There was strength in him, but also gentleness. He didn't just fix things, he cared for them, treated them like they mattered. When they finished, the sun was setting behind the hills, painting the sky in soft gold and pink. Clara looked at the repaired fence and said, "It's beautiful." Ethan wiped his hands and smiled. "It's sturdy now, won't fall again." "Thank you," she said quietly. He looked at her, then really looked, and something passed between them. Unspoken, but clear. It wasn't just gratitude. It was something deeper, something that had been building since that first night he knocked on her door. That evening, they sat on the porch watching the colors fade from the sky. The silence between them was peaceful. Then, out of nowhere, Clara said, "You make it easy to forget that. I used to be afraid of letting people in." Ethan turned toward her. "I wasn't trying to make you forget. I just wanted you to feel safe again." She nodded, her voice soft. "You did." The next day, Ethan didn't come by, nor the day after. Clara told herself he must be busy, but a small worry began to grow inside her. Just as she was about to convince herself to call him, she heard another knock on her door. When she opened it, Ethan stood there, looking tired, but smiling. "Sorry I disappeared for a few days," he said. "Had to finish a big job in town. I miss our coffee talks." She laughed in relief. "You and your excuses. Come in before I change my mind." As they sat down by the fire that evening, something felt different, closer, warmer. The air between them held unspoken feelings. Clara poured him coffee and said, "You know, you've become quite a habit around here." He looked at her, smiling softly. "Is that a bad thing?" "No," she said, meeting his gaze. They didn't need to say more. Their silence spoke for them. In the weeks that followed, the two grew inseparable. They went on small drives to nearby towns, shared meals, fixed small things around the cabin, and talked late into the night. The loneliness that once haunted Clara had vanished. The air was crisp, the sky endless above them. Ethan stopped and looked up. "When I was younger, I used to make wishes on stars," he said. "To think." They listened. Clara smiled. "And now," he shrugged lightly, "now I think the best things don't come from wishes. They come from the courage to open the door when life knocks." Her heart swelled. It was such a simple thing to say, yet it held a story of their connection. She looked at him, her eyes soft. "That night, when you knocked, I almost didn't open it," he said gently. "I'm glad you did." That night around them felt still, the kind of stillness that holds promise. They stood quietly for a moment, the world fading to nothing but space between them. When they returned to the cabin, Ethan lingered at the door. "I should go," he said, though his tone carried reluctance. Clara looked up at him. "Or you could stay for dinner." He smiled. That familiar warm smile that made her heart calm. "I'd like that." "Okay." That evening, as they sat across the table, laughter echoing softly through the cabin, Clara realized something. This was what peace felt like. Not perfection, not fireworks, just quiet moments shared with someone that truly understood her. Later, as the fire burned low, Ethan glanced at her and said, "You've changed this place. You know, it feels alive now." She shook her head. "No, Ethan, you did that." He didn't argue. He just smiled, and in that look she felt everything words couldn't express: gratitude, tenderness, and something that was slowly turning into love. That night he left. The air felt lighter, the stars brighter. Clara stood by the window long after his truck disappeared, her heart filled with warmth and something she hadn't felt in a long time.